Welcome to Your Gal Friday, a podcast about female leaders, innovators, and rule breakers. Each week, your hosts, Leah and Phoebe, will shine a spotlight on an amazing gal and talk about what we can all learn from her. Brought to you by Gal's Guide to the Galaxy.
Welcome to Your Gal Friday. I'm Dr. Leah Leach.
And I'm Phoebe Freer.
Today we're talking about a gal who is a math genius. Her calculations were pivotal in getting the first American in space and back home safely. But it didn't stop there. From the early days of the NACA testing airplanes and rockets to all the way to the Space Shuttle Program, she was crunching numbers with pinpoint accuracy. Today, we're making math a ton of fun and talking about the life and legacy of your gal, Katherine Johnson.
Yay! So, similarly to Dorothy Vaughan, I knew of Katherine Johnson because of the movie Hidden Figures. If it weren't for the movie, or for the fact that I know Leah, I probably would never have known about Katherine Johnson. So when I watched the movie, Katherine is of course who I felt the closest to, other than the other three, but that's simply because that's how the movie's constructed, and movies typically
She's the hero.
Yeah, she's the hero. Typically, movies have one main character when it comes down to it, and she was it. So, of course, I gravitated to her, and she's got that home family life that they touched on and all that stuff, and she's incredibly smart. So it's like, she's just the whole package.
Oh, yes.
You know? Leah mentioned that she became kind of a composite character. So meaning that what happened to her in the movie actually happened to other women in real life as well as herself. So this week I was interested to learn what really was about her and what was really her character.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat where, just like how, last week with Dorothy Vaughan,
Right.
I had read the book first and then I saw the movie. And I mean, I knew before going into this research, that the Katherine movie version, was a little bit different. And I totally get why they do that. It's totally cool.
Totally.
So, she kind of showed the overarching journey, you know what I mean? Kind of within the movie as well.
Yeah.
So, however, we do a show on real life gals. And so separating that fact from fiction is just something I just love to do.
Oh, yeah. It's so much fun,
I find it so much fun. Yes. Yep. So, I mean, I was really looking forward to this episode to kind of learn more about the real Katherine.
Totally.
You know what I mean? The full-fledged real gal.
Oh, yeah. Me too. And, for me, it's awesome when, if you listen to the show, you probably already know this, but, for me, when characters are portrayed in movies or TV shows or something visual and audible that you can drink in, it's easier for me to remember it and understand it. So it's really cool to see a movie about it and then go research for yourself what really happened, because then you actually have faces to put with it, and you can be like, oh, they should have done this in the movie, not in a critiquing way, but more in a you create the movie in your head. So it's a really cool part of it.
This is a fascinating story as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And you actually have faces and ideas and fun visuals to go with it now. And you can just keep the movie continuing in your head, at least for me. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. They say that a visual image gets to the brain's long-term memory faster than reading words on a page.
Definitely.
So it sticks with you longer and you can build upon it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's why it's extremely important also to still have visual history as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes. Well, should we get into it?
Yes,
Do you want to tell us, where was the real Katherine born?
Well, Katherine was born in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, as Katherine Coleman. She was born on August 26, 1918, and her parents were Joshua Coleman and Joylette Coleman. Katherine was the youngest of 4 children. Katherine's intelligence and gifting was apparent, even at a young age. In her area, there was limited education for African Americans. Her school only went up to 8th grade, which she completed by the age of 10. But there was a school about
Amazing.
120 miles away called the Institute of West Virginia, which was on the campus of West Virginia State College. So, Catherine's parents, who were very supportive of education, sent all of their children to finish high school 120 miles away. The families split their time between the college and White Sulphur Springs over the summer. The reason their family was so supportive of this is because Catherine's father was actually also really good with math, and he was very smart, and he used it to his advantage in his career, even though a lot of his career choices were very hands-on and very hands-on type careers. Catherine's career was very mathematical and did the numbers, but she got that from her father, and her parents absolutely understood the importance of growing her education.
Yeah. Oh, thank goodness they did.
I know,
yeah.
right? Like, geez, she did so many things because of that. Catherine continued to excel in school, and she graduated high school at the young age of 14. After that, she attended, not surprisingly, West Virginia State College, which is now known as West Virginia State University. She took every single math course she could. She found every way she could expand her knowledge and her resources. So she had multiple professors mentor her and even had Angie Turner King as her mentor. At one point, Angie was one of the first African-American women to gain a degree in chemistry and mathematics. Catherine also had teachers add new math courses just for her. So another mentor was Dr. Claytor, who taught her as much as he could, according to the book Hidden Figures by Margot Lee Shetterly. He taught her everything he could think of to prepare her for her career in mathematics. Everything from teaching to creating more courses to just tutoring her and pushing her, and he did everything he could.
Yeah, giving her advice all along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even at one point, she was like, where am I going to find a career in this? And he said, well, that's your problem. I'm just here to teach you. That's your problem to find a career in it. Like,
that's a good mentor, actually.
It's
That's
very
really good.
Like, if I had a mentor in
searching.
film like that, they're like, okay, here's all the stuff you need. Now go find out where you're supposed to go. It's like, whoa, okay then.
Right.
Man, that's incredible. So she graduated college with degrees in French and math at the young age of 18. As soon as she was able, she took a teaching job at a black public school in Marion, Virginia. The next year, Catherine secretly married her first husband, James Goebel, in 1939. Now, she did it secretly because schools did not allow married women in to teach. I think, Leah, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it just to teach, or was it to teach and to go attend school?
It was a little bit of both. It was a frowned upon sort of thing, because a married woman at any point would leave either a teaching job or college because of children.
Right.
So it doesn't mean necessarily that they were planning to have children, but they would see married women and think they're not going to stay here that long.
Gotcha.
So that's why keeping it a secret.
Yeah. She kept it so much on the down low that she didn't even tell her parents she was married.
It's amazing.
Yeah, she was committed. So around this time, schools were slowly desegregating, if that's a word. So Dr. Davis, the president of Catherine's alma mater, turned down $4 million from West Virginia's legislature to fund a graduate program for their all-black segregated school. He turned this down because he was hoping that by not creating a segregated all-black university, that West Virginia University's all-white school would be compelled to accept black students and therefore end segregation. Or at least slowly start.
That's very cool.
It's very cool. It's very wise. I don't know if I would have thought
and brave.
Yeah, very brave.
Yeah.
Very brave and wise. It's just, wow. Who would have thought?
Good on him.
I mean, yeah. It's a great idea. And it actually worked. West Virginia's Governor Holt decided not to fight the desegregation, but he decided to let the integration process move forward. Governor Holt asked Dr. Davis to handpick 3 African American students to integrate. Dr. Davis explained this all to Katherine, and he sat her down and he said, "I pick you." And he also included 2 other black men. So since Katherine was chosen into the program, she quit her job and enrolled into the university. She rarely saw the other 2 black men, if at all, so she was all on her own. But she excelled in her studies once again. The teachers treated her fairly. She was doing well. After only a year of attending graduate school, she became pregnant, and it became apparent that they now needed to tell the world about her marriage because, it's about to show soon. Mm-hmm. Some sources online say that Katherine quit school because maybe she didn't like it. She didn't like the segregation happening or being around so many white people. Some sources say that she just wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. But according to the book by Margot Lee Shetterly, it was because she kept it a secret and because they would frown upon her being married and being pregnant. So because it was a secret and because it was going to be revealed and they probably would frown upon it anyway, she decided to stay home and quit school and not deal with the hassle and just take care of her family, which she later said she did not regret this decision at all, which is fantastic because that's a really big and hard decision to make.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Katherine had 3 daughters, and once they became older, Katherine went back to teaching math and French. So, Leah, how did Katherine go from teaching to working at what would become NASA?
So, Katherine heard about the NACA hiring black mathematicians from her brother-in-law at a wedding in Virginia. It was a math job that she had been waiting for. It was like the math job that her mentor told her to go look for.
Yep.
So, she applied for it. She started in 1953, and she reported to Dorothy Vaughan in the West Area Computers. But she really didn't stay there for long. So, yay for Dot, yes.
Right. But another difference from the movie slightly, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because really she was only there for about 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. And the movie made it seem much longer.
Right, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So it was 2 weeks into her start, and a request came in from the Flight and Research Division looking for 2 new computers. So Dorothy sent Irma Tynes and Katherine. So in Margot's book, Hidden Figures, she talks about Katherine's first encounter with the engineers and how it didn't really go the best. She kind of took stock of the busy room. It was mostly male, but not all male. And she headed for an empty cube of tables by the engineers. She put her stuff down and she smiled. And then the engineer got up and walked away.
Oh, geez.
I know, right? Margot writes this very beautifully. She says, bemused, Katherine considers the engineer's sudden departure. The moment that passed between them could have been because she was black and he was white. But then again, it could have been because she was a woman and he was a man. Or maybe the moment was an interaction between a professional and a sub-professional, an engineer and a girl. So it kind of shows, by reading the book and even with watching interviews of Katherine, I kind of read between the lines there because really, Margot sums it up very well. It's a lot going in, to an environment. It could have been much of anything. So you didn't know when and if discrimination was going to come at you, but more than likely it would from one way or another.
Right, because there's so many different things people frown on.
Right, exactly. And Katherine could not change the fact that she was black. She could not change the fact that she was a woman. All she could do was do the work and prove herself to be the most skilled mathematician. And I think that's what she focused on, and that's why she thrived.
Definitely. Definitely.
I can also say that engineer who stood up and disappeared for a bit, once he found out that Katherine was also from West Virginia, those two became very fast friends.
Aww, that's so
empathy.
great.
Once you get to have something in common.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yes. So Katherine stayed in flight and research for a while. Actually, so much so that Dorothy noticed that Katherine should be getting her 6-month promotion, but she might not get it because she was not returned to the computer pool.
Oh, that's funny.
So Dorothy had a meeting with Henry Pearson, who is the branch chief of flight and research, and she said, either give her a raise or send her back to me.
Nice.
So I love that Dorothy was sticking up for her gals, right?
Sticking up for you. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So Pearson, of course, offered Katherine a permanent position and a raise within flight and research because there was no way they were going to send Katherine back to the computer pool at all. Yeah. She asked all the right questions and her work was completely flawless.
That's awesome.
Katherine also simply loved what she was doing. One of her first assignments involved the crashing of a propeller plane, and the work needed to be done to figure out why it just fell out of the sky. Now, her calculations involved analytic geometry with lots of variables. So the engineers were able to take her data and test it and find out where the problem happened and why, and also how to solve it for moving forward. She loved that what she was able to do had such a positive impact in the world. It was quite amazing.
That's amazing.
So those were the very first few months that she was within NACA. I'm going to jump a little bit ahead and go into when it's now NASA and the Mercury program. So the Mercury program is one of the things she's most famous for. Now, the Mercury program was a mission to put Americans into space. The real goal was to have a man in Earth orbit and return safely before the Russians did it. That was the real goal. The truth was, though, the Russians were way ahead of the United States. So we started calling it the space race. It was really between the United States and Russia.
Makes sense.
So there was many test flights, and there was about 20 unmanned flights, and there were 6 manned flights in the Mercury program. The Mercury program, according to Spacecraft Encyclopedia, its completion cost $277 million and employed 2 million people. It's a lot of people and a lot of money.
Wow.
Right? Now, I bring this up because sometimes when we think of the Mercury project, we think of the Mercury 7, if we think of it at all. But the Mercury 7 is the 7 astronauts chosen and trained to be the first ones in space. But there are 2 million people that worked on this program. So not just the 7, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's one of those things where of the people who worked hard to get them to space and back, one of them was Katherine Johnson.
Absolutely.
So, yes. Yep. So at this time during the Mercury program, Katherine was at the Space Task Group, and it was comprised of many of the engineers from her previous group from Flight and Research. So Katherine did the trajectory analysis for Alan Shepard's May 1961 Freedom 7 mission, which was the first American spaceflight. A year later, when John Glenn was about to embark on his first orbital mission, the IBM computers were being utilized a lot more than the human computers were. Right. But there was also more working parts, basically. The IBMs, there was many of them. There was 4 of them, actually. They needed to all be synced. So the computers and IBMs that were in Washington, D.C., Cape Canaveral, and Bermuda all needed to be on the exact same page. None of them could be wrong. Well, during a pre-flight checkup, NASA said that there was a hiccup. That was the technical term.
Yeah.
Basically, that's code for one of the computers wasn't given the same information as the other computers.
Makes sense.
So when John Glenn was told that, he asked the engineers to get the girl. And that meant Katherine. Quote, if she says they're good, then I'm ready to go, is what John Glenn said. So Katherine checked the numbers. They were the same as the IBM, and she checked them by hand, and John Glenn's flight was a success.
That's so awesome. And that's like another thing that's correct in the movie. But like we were talking about, we were talking about this earlier. In the movie, they like implied that it was very last minute, but like this still happened, but it wasn't quite as last minute. But that's definitely a movie thing.
They had enough time.
They had time.
Exactly. But always with a movie, you got to have that conflict and that,
it's like, it's the Alfred Hitchcock thing. It's the bomb in the room, you know? It's like, there's a bomb in the room.
Absolutely. You know? Yes. That ticking clock. Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah. Movie.
Yes. Oh, no, totally. Yeah. If you know there's going to be a bomb that's going to explode, then you're more heightened sense of awareness.
Right.
So
yeah.
if you know that John Glenn needs these numbers for a safe flight, then you make that a heightened state of awareness. Yeah.
Totally. And she did it. And it's so cool. I was like so happy to discover that was true. Because that's really cool.
Right. Exactly. I love it. Well, you digged into her work in the Apollo missions.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool. Once I discovered some things, I got really excited. Okay. So Katherine helped calculate the trajectory for the 1969 Apollo 11 flight to the moon during the moon landing. So during the landing, she was at a meeting in the Pocono Mountains, and she and a few others crowded around the television screen and watched the first steps on the moon that she helped happen, which is astounding.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So this next one, although landing on the moon is a huge deal, this next one is a huge deal to me personally because I like movies. I learned that Katherine Johnson could have and maybe should have been a character in the movie Apollo 13. So she also worked on Apollo 13 moon mission, which was in 1970. So when the spacecraft began to fail, the mission was aborted and Katherine was working on backup procedures. In a 2010 interview, Katherine recalled, quote, "Everybody was concerned about them getting to the moon. We were concerned about getting them back." What Katherine Johnson helped do was her and her partner made calculations before the takeoff, before everything happened. They did test flights, they did test calculations and simulations. They asked the question, okay, what happens when the computers stop working? How do we get them back when the computers shut down? And she asked this question. Well, because she asked this question, they created this procedure that was based on the stars in the sky. Like you counted the stars and you did these calculations based on the stars and all of this. But because in Apollo 13, there was so much debris that they couldn't tell what was debris and what was the stars. Because of that, Katherine's exact calculations could not be used. Because of those calculations and because of that procedure, Jim Lovell actually came up with a different idea based on Katherine's. So that's when they decided to line up the window with Earth and base it on the line of the hemisphere line where it was like the darkness to lightness. And even Katherine was like, they were really lucky. Like they were really lucky because that had to go just right for that to work. And it was based on an astronaut and a mathematician, and everything just had to be exactly right. But it's really cool that it worked out. Like, Katherine literally saved lives, and that's so cool.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. If she hadn't thought of that question earlier, where they could work out, here's some options.
Right.
And then to have the astronauts like Jim Lovell be aware of those options.
Exactly.
I mean, that's planning for the worst scenario.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it worked.
And it worked. Like, if she hadn't thought about that, they wouldn't have thought about the actual solution. So it's like,
because you don't have a lot of time. You got to figure this stuff out like yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. And she did figure it out yesterday. I was like, oh my gosh. I was so excited because I'm like, all right, now I'm like rewriting the movie a little bit and adding Katherine into it. And it was like, okay, we could have added her here. We could add her there. Like, It's just so
I know,
fun.
isn't it wonderful?
You could combine those two movies. You could combine Hidden Figures and Apollo 13. Like, that's just so cool.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's fantastic.
It is.
I love her Apollo stories. I really, really do.
Oh, it's so exciting. So what did she do on this space shuttle program?
One thing that I kept finding, which is, and I will try not to go on a rant about it, but every biography that you look at, it'll say that Katherine also worked on the Space Shuttle Program and the Earth Resources satellites.
Right.
But finding information about what she did on those,
like
was difficult.
Yeah, we found a lot of like one sentence, like, "Oh, she did this, and then she did this," and it's like, "Well, can you tell us a little bit about that, maybe?"
But what did she do on that? Right. And it's one of those things because, I mean, the space shuttle stuff and the satellite, those were in my lifetime. So why is there less information? You would think there would be more, right?
Right.
This is kind of what I have pieced together. I've pieced together by looking at the Space Shuttle Program, because the Space Shuttle Program actually started in its early days in 1977. The idea was to have a reusable spacecraft. That is basically what it is when we're talking about the Space Shuttle Program. The idea is this reusable spacecraft could bring crew and cargo from orbit to back to Earth. So because this spacecraft was actually kind of more of a glider, the way that it came back to Earth, it would need to land not in the ocean, but on a specific runway, either at the Kennedy Center or at Edwards Air Force Base. Now, what we know of Katherine's trajectories is that they were pinpoint accurate. She knew what spot of ocean every capsule was going to land on.
Wow.
So I can only assume her talents were perfect to make sure that they create a shuttle that was a glider that could correct its orbit and return to the exact spot of a runway.
Wow.
I assume that is where she worked on in the Space Shuttle Program. So, because honestly, as a kid, I always found it fascinating. How in the world did they know the exact window when they were in outer space to return to Florida when everything is currently in motion and constantly in motion, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't realize that it was math. I didn't know it was math.
Yeah, no.
I was too busy getting a D in geometry at this point. So,
yeah, no,
I didn't know.
Same. Yes, definitely.
Exactly. So from 1981 to 2011, we honestly had one of the coolest things ever. We had a space shuttle. It actually kind of makes me quite sad that it was retired because the space shuttle for me, it was our Enterprise. It was our Millennium Falcon. But actually, in reality, it was quite a bit more. The shuttle missions explored Earth's climate. It measured asteroids in the atmosphere. It sent out the Hubble Bubble Space Telescope, and I know it's not the Hubble Bubble, but that's just always what I've called it from my childhood. And it took pictures of our universe, and it sent them back. And so it also set up a space station where people can actually live in outer space. So the space shuttle missions, as well as the Earth resource satellites, both of them Katherine worked on, they looked at the Earth temperatures. They looked at the ice caps and the oceans. They looked at the ozone, and they looked at the strathosphere, which is the air we breathe. That's the complicated word for it. But it looked at like far, far more. Now, I know Phoebe is a fan of the movie Twister.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
They, in fact, because of the space shuttle missions, the F factors for tornadoes were developed because Langley and the work of the space missions and the Earth rescues.
What?
So we got an F5, we got an F1.
What? Mind blown. 3 movies.
Exactly. So many movies combined into one in Phoebe's head right now.
So many. It's so beautiful. It's a beautiful place right now.
Right? See, this is why I'm obsessed with NASA and the space program.
Oh, yeah. I see it now.
Yeah, it ties into so many things that I love randomly.
Yeah, so random.
You wouldn't think they were connected.
No, you wouldn't.
Yep.
But they are. It's all connected.
So we have learned about her NASA life,
Yes.
but what about her life outside of NASA? What about her personal life?
So there's a few tidbits about her personal life. Well, Katherine at this point is, of course, Katherine Goebel. She's not Katherine Johnson yet. Well, that's because Katherine Goebel is, of course, the last name of her first husband, Jimmy Goebel. Well, Jimmy actually died in 1956 from a tumor and head trauma. He died tragically, and it was very sad. And Katherine was so happy with her life at this point that I can't imagine how tragic this was to lose him. But in 1959, Katherine actually remarried to James A. Johnson. He was a second lieutenant in the Army, and he was a veteran of the Korean War. Now, again, there isn't much online about her second marriage, but in the movie Hidden Figures, it does do a pretty good job of filling in the blanks and kind of putting more meat behind the information than the internet provides.
Right, exactly.
And they kind of like show how they met and all this stuff because it was during her NASA times and her space times and such.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
So there are some interesting stories about Katherine at Langley, and I just wanted to share them with you. I'm actually going to read right from the book by Margot Lee Shetterly, The Hidden Figures, of course. I'm just reading straight from the book because it sounds so good already. I didn't want to mess it up and reword it for no reason.
She writes so well.
She does
hard
write
to
so
not
well.
to, yes.
I get sucked in. Just a random shout out. Thank you, Margot Lee Shetterly, because your book has been a godsend.
Yes, you really three-dimensionalized all of these characters for us. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the book says she took a genuine liking to her new colleagues as well. The West Virginia engineers she had met on day one played ABBO and local symphony. Members of the Brian Busters Club convened after work and on weekends to build elaborate model airplanes by hand. Many of the men and women at Langley joined softball or basketball teams and played in local amateur leagues. Langley's, quote, Sky Chicks competed against a team fielded by the power company, the Kilowatt Cuties. That was hard to say, but it was
Which
so
is
fun.
such a great name. It's really cute.
It's so cute. Oh my gosh. Over time, the black employees joined teams as well. And then there was the lunchtime bridge game. The game's requirement of both analytical and people reading skills made it a favorite game of the engineers, and they spent many a lunch hour in fierce competition. They were an opinionated, high-energy bunch, and best of all, as far as Katherine was concerned, they were all smart as whips. There was nothing Katherine Goebel loved more than brains.
Oh, yeah. I can see that in interviews when she talks about anybody that she thought was really smart, that she's smitten by intelligence.
Aww.
She really appreciates it.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm. You had another one too, didn't you?
I do. So in the movie Hidden Figures, they go on and on about this thing with the bathroom that Katherine had to run across the way and like run a mile just to go to the bathroom. Now they kind of twisted it a little bit in the movie, but essentially it was true. I'm also going to read a paragraph from the book about that because they explain it very concisely and very eloquently. So from the beginning, Katherine felt completely at home at Langley. Nothing about the culture of the laboratory or her new colleagues rattled her, not even the persistent racial segregation. At the beginning, in fact, she didn't even realize the bathrooms were segregated. Not every building had a colored bathroom, a fact that Mary Jackson had discovered so painfully during her rotation on the East Side. Though bathrooms for black employees were clearly marked, most of the bathrooms, the ones implicitly designed for white employees, were unmarked. As far as Katherine was concerned, there was no reason why she shouldn't use those as well. It would be a couple of years before she was confronted on the whole rigmarole of separate bathrooms. By then, she simply refused to change her habits, refused to so much so as enter the colored bathrooms. And that was that. No one ever said anything.
I know, I love it.
I love it too.
She was gonna do what she needed to do.
I love how the movie, really touched on important topics. And they only skewed it just enough to, be in a movie format, basically.
Right, exactly. They still hit the bathroom thing. But just for the movie, they had an experience to the hero, Catherine,
Right.
instead of who it really happened to, which is Mary, who we're going to talk about next episode. Yeah.
So, in addition to having a family, working for Langley, and essentially saving lives, Catherine sang in the choir of Carver Presbyterian Church for 50 years. She's been a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha since college, which was the first sorority established by and for African American women. Catherine and her husband have 6 grandchildren and 11 great-grandchildren.
Oh, very awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
So tell me about her papers.
Because there is also a scene, or series of scenes, I should say, in Hidden Figures, the movie, where Catherine is trying to get her name on reports as an author. Now, getting your name on a research report really was a big deal. It was also accountability for the accuracy of your work. So if you stood behind your numbers and your research, you certainly wanted your name on that front page.
Absolutely.
However, it was prestigious. So, according to Margot's book, it said, quote, getting one's name on a research report was a necessary first step in the career of an engineer. For a woman, it was significant and an unusual achievement. So, yeah, so many people wanted their name on a paper.
That makes sense.
So, according to NASA, Catherine co-authored 26 different research reports. Her first would not only be the first for her, but the first time that a woman in the flight and research division received credit as an author. And it was a 1960s report called, and you know I can't not share the title of her report because I love these. It was called Determination of the Azimuth Angle in the Burnout for Placing a Satellite Over a Selected Earth Position.
Oh
Doesn't that sound fascinating?
It totally does, and I don't understand any of those words, but it sounds great.
I know, but there's lots of words all strung together. But it was Catherine and engineer Ted Skopotsky whose names were on the paper. So now, women, regardless of color, they really did struggle to get their name on reports in the early days. Doris Cohen would actually be the first in 1941. She would go on to author 9 more reports. 5 of them, she was actually the sole author. And that was very, very rare. So Catherine getting her name on a report 20 years later in 1960, it was still not normal to get her name on reports. So good on you. Now, Catherine went on to win a lot of awards and some really cool things happened to her.
Oh my gosh.
Please tell me all these awesome things about Catherine.
I think I should start with the best because I'm pretty excited about this. I thought this one was really cool. So,
do it.
Catherine received the Presidential Medal of Freedom Award, which is an award given by the President of the United States, who at the time was President Obama. It is the highest civilian award that is given from the United States. It's people like Mother Teresa and the United Kingdom Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher who receive this award. And Catherine got it. Like, this is a big deal. Like, a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
She was one of 17 Americans that was honored on November 24th, 2015 by President Barack Obama. She was cited as a pioneering example of African American women in STEM. So that's insanely cool.
And I love it.
And the president gave her a kiss and she was surprised and all blushing, and it's very cute and oh my gosh.
It was so adorable. She did not expect him to lean down and give her a kiss, and she's like, uh-huh.
It's so cute.
Lovely.
Oh
she loved it.
That's just so cool that it came from Barack Obama too. It's just just all of that is just so cool. It's
Exactly.
Oh man.
It's a sweet, sweet moment to watch actually the footage of the award ceremony. Yeah. It's super sweet.
So cute. Oh my gosh. In addition to that, Catherine was named the West Virginia State College Outstanding Alumnus of the Year in 1999.
Very cool.
On May 5th, 2016, a new, very large building was named Katherine G. Johnson Computational Research Facility and formally dedicated at the agency's Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia. The facility officially opened its doors September 22nd, 2017. Katherine attended this event, which marked the 55th anniversary of astronaut Alan Shepard's historic rocket launch and splashdown, a success that Katherine helped achieve. So during this event, Katherine also received a Silver Snoopy Award, often called the Astronaut's Award. NASA stated it is given to those who have made outstanding contributions to flight safety and mission success. So that's a huge honor.
Very cool. She has a huge building named after her at Langley.
That's a big day. That's a big day. That's so cool.
It really is. Yeah.
In 2016, Katherine was included in a list of 100 women, BBC's list of 100 influential women worldwide. NASA stated her calculations proved as critical to the success of the Apollo moon landing program and the start of the Space Shuttle Program, and they did to those first steps on the country's journey into space. That is
so awesome.
That's so awesome to get recognition from NASA. Like NASA specifically
It really
said that.
is.
It's that important that NASA had to release and say that. That's so great. Katherine is actually also portrayed in a TV series called Timeless. She was portrayed in the episode Space Race. And she was also portrayed, of course, in the movie Hidden Figures. In an interview, Katherine said about the movie that it was well done. The three leading ladies did an excellent job portraying us. So that's really cool to get.
Oh, very sweet.
I can't imagine being a filmmaker and hearing that from somebody who's still living, watching the movie that you created about them. That's just a dream.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. Katherine, she retired from NASA in 1986, and she worked at Langley for 33 years, and she said in an interview, "I love going to work every single day."
Yay, that's so cool.
Not many people can say that, but I'm happy that Katherine did. Yes. Yes. She's also, as you probably our glorious listeners have gleaned, she is the only of the Hidden Figures gals that is actually still alive today. This August, Katherine will be celebrating, fingers crossed everywhere, 100 years old.
Yay.
So, yes. Get to August, girl. And then keep going. Keep going.
Just get to 100. Triple digits, man. Triple digits.
Exactly. Absolutely.
The world can use more of Katherine anyway.
Yes, absolutely. Let's appreciate her while she is here.
Exactly.
Because she is a national treasure. Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely.
So it is a little interesting because she is still alive.
Right.
So when we have our legacy question, she is still here. So, Phoebe, what do you think? What legacy she wants to leave behind?
Man, no pressure. She's still here. And there's a once in a blue moon chance that she could hear this.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
You never know.
What legacy do we think she wants to leave behind? Looking back through everything that we just talked about, she fought segregation, but she wasn't really fighting. She just wanted what was best for herself and for her family. I think that the fact that her parents actually helped her through and actually pushed her to pursue mathematics, and also they didn't condemn her for quitting school or for quitting her job to raise a family either. So I kind of...
Right. Yeah, they kept supporting her, yeah.
Yeah. So thinking about all of that, I'm kind of thinking she wanted her legacy to leave behind positivity and encouragement to people who wanted to pursue a career, but also not judgmental. I feel like her father's mentality probably rubbed off on her a lot, where it was okay, this is your passion, this is your career, this is what you're good at. So encouraging her kids to do that and encouraging people to be themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And use their skills and talents for, the greater good. Yeah.
Yeah. absolutely. So that's kind of what I'm thinking.
I like it. Well, she was asked at one point what she believed was her greatest contribution. So I'm gonna kind of take this as what I'm thinking. Maybe could be her the legacy that she would want to leave behind.
Right.
She said that the space exploration and the calculations that helped sync Apollo's lunar lander with the moon orbiting command and service module was her greatest accomplishment. I love that her legacy answer is specific. It's one event. It's one calculation. I honestly think it's that precision that I love about Katherine.
Yeah.
She doesn't really think like, she doesn't think anyway, big picture. We do. We always think big picture when we think legacy. But she's not thinking of, like a wish or a dream. At least her legacy answer is concrete. I did this. It helped lots of people. It was a success. It allowed for other successes. So basically, like, she did her part and it worked. Like, I love that.
Beautiful.
It's so simple.
That's so cool.
And it's a different kind of gal, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense why it was hard to figure out this answer.
Yeah, but they're always hard because we're jumping into the shoes of the gal trying to figure out what legacy they would want. And we are different people.
Right. And how many of them actually think about their legacy and actually
correct.
Do it on
Sometimes
purposely.
You don't.
Sometimes you don't think about your legacy and you're not purposeful, but there's still a legacy. Like, you always leave a legacy. So we always try to dissect what that legacy is. But some gals, it's like, oh, I don't know if they thought about this because it could be this, it could be that, it could be pretty much anything.
Or some of them died so young that it wasn't even like that wasn't an option. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So then the other big question we always ask is, so Phoebe, what did you learn from Katherine this week?
Just hearing you talk about her legacy answer, okay, and say she pinpointed one event that it helped people and it worked. So I'm learning that first off, you're allowed to congratulate yourself for doing a good thing.
Yes.
You're allowed to be like, hey, I did this. It was very good. It helped people. And I'm happy of myself because of this. Like, you're allowed to do that.
Yep, absolutely.
Which is weird for me, but I'm learning. So for me, it's like, okay, it doesn't always have to be about, oh my gosh, I'm not helping millions of people every day. Like, it can be about that one thing in your life that you're going towards. And then the rest of your life is you're helping your family. You're doing the little things, right? Or what seem like little things.
Yes.
But it's okay to have that one moment where it's like, that's my moment. Like, that's what I accomplished, and be happy with yourself for it instead of saying like, oh, that's the only thing I accomplished. Like, if that's not the only thing Katherine accomplished. But like,
right.
If you're negative about it, you could easily be like, oh, that's the only thing I accomplished. I didn't do anything. It's for the next few years or whatever. Like, that's how my brain works. But I can learn from Katherine, hey, don't do that. Like, you accomplished this and you're still smart and you're still doing good things. It's interesting to me that we can learn different things when we're at different points in our lives. Because right now I'm trying to learn the whole confidence thing and like being okay with myself thing. So like a lot of these things that I'm trying to, or I'm just actively learning from these women are about how they handle themselves, how they are in public, how they like I think a lot, especially while we're recording, like, what do they think about at night when they're by themselves, and what would I think about at night by myself if I were them? And for me, my brain's like so negative towards myself that it's like, why would you think that about Katherine Johnson? Like, come on, these are the things you should be thinking about. So then it turns into, why would you think those things about yourself, So
she's probably reworking calculations in her head.
Probably.
You know what I mean? That's what I would imagine. She's I feel like she would always be working the problem.
Yeah.
So, and that's something you can easily learn. It's like, you know what? Okay, is there a problem?
Definitely.
Let me work the
Let me
problem.
work the
If there
problem.
isn't,
Yeah.
let me not worry about it.
Exactly. Like she's like, okay, if there's a problem, there's an answer. That's why I like math. And it's like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Actually, there's always an answer.
Right.
Oh. What did you learn about, Leah?
I really cemented my appreciation for math because of
Yeah.
Katherine. It's one of those things. It's my father, he was the precursor to this. He spent hours helping me understand algebra, not just how to do it, but understanding the practical application of learning how algebraic equations function, you know what I mean, in
Totally.
problem solving. He helped me with, real life applications of it. So, but again, geometry, that one I couldn't do. That one I just could not wrap my brain around it. Now, I'm very lucky. My daughters can do geometry, and I see them explain it to me, and I'm just in awe. I really am. I'm amazed that they grasp it so well. So, I mean, I love math. I love it because it's problem solving, and I problem solve every day, and I use math every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always around. And so, and like you were saying, Katherine said in an interview, it was hard to do, but when you got it, you got it. You had to work for it. There was a right and a wrong. See, in history, there's not always a right and a wrong. I thought that was quite interesting. And I love it because we do this show and we talk about, history. So I fully get that.
Totally.
Math has that right and wrong. History is up to interpretation of facts.
Absolutely.
Interpretation has no distinct right or wrong. It is up to the individual who kind of accepts the history, digests the history, and puts their own experiences, you know what I mean, on the history as well.
Like what we do.
So yeah, I totally understand. So I learned that my appreciation of math actually has life and death consequences because the Space Shuttle Program, they needed to be right.
Yeah.
So there's right and wrong, but there's also life and death. It's important. So I'm immensely thankful to the NACA that understood that because of the high risk of life and death, they needed the best minds that they could find, and that those minds had to not be segregated or separated because of color or gender. They just they needed the best minds that they could find in the country. So I mean, I really learned that we get farther faster when we all work together. That is really, I think, what I'm taking from Katherine.
Absolutely. That's great.
So, yes, I love it. We do, once again, just want to give a shout out to Margot Lee Shatterly and the book Hidden Figures. Yes.
Oh, yes.
We really appreciate it. If you have enjoyed this episode, there is a treasure trove more of information about not only Katherine and not only about the space program, but more real life gals that are in the book Hidden Figures. And I will say there are 2 versions available. So there is a young adult version of this book available as well. So we both really highly suggest you check them out.
Absolutely. It's so detailed, and it's more like if you look on Wikipedia and try to read about these gals, like you'll get the facts, but you won't get the personality, you won't get the
story,
the connection.
Yeah.
Because even on Wikipedia, they don't include stuff that the book has. It brings you right down to what they were thinking and feeling, and it's just, but it's still nonfiction, and it's like, it's really cool.
Yeah, and NASA does a pretty good job, but there were still holes in it. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So there was still things that even NASA biographies weren't covering.
NASA's concerned about like what she added to the program as opposed to her details about her whole life, where we like to know the details about your whole life. So the book is perfect.
Yeah,
and we like owe Margot Lee Shatterly.
We like the 360 dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that wraps it up for us. Next week, we are continuing with the real life gals of Hidden Figures with Mary Jackson.
Yay.
So Gal's Guide is also continuing Black History Month with articles and videos and podcasts dedicated to our fantastic sisters, past and present. So check all of those out at galsguide.org. We leave you with this quote from Katherine Johnson. Take all the courses in your curriculum, do the research, Ask questions. Find someone doing what you are interested in, and be curious.
For more information about this week's Gal, or to check out our previous episodes, visit galsguide.org. To support the show, visit the Gals Guide Patreon page. We love our patrons and offer exclusive perks and behind-the-scenes access for as little as $1 a month. Thank you so much for subscribing to Your Gal Friday.